Hello! Last week I decided to create a task for County Kilkenny in our task manager, which I talked about in a previous video, so I won't repeat all of that again, to go and update all the buildings for County Kilkenny using the Esri World imagery, which is what it is called on OpenStreetMap. It might have different names depending on where you go. So mapping the missing buildings and also deleting buildings that are no longer there, that was the main task of this, or the main job. And the side effect I was hoping was that I was going to find some hitherto unrecorded archaeological sites. And because I'm working with this grid, this was going to be very efficient. And I'm nearly done now. I started last week on the 27th. And I have this bit left. I won't do Kilkenny City because I usually take care of that all the time, so I don't really need to go in there, I think. So I have about 7 hours work left, which is about a day in my world. I found about 10 potential archaeological sites, some of which I have already recorded. 2 of them have already been confirmed. And then I stopped reporting them because I thought I could do another video about how to report a potential monument to the Department for Heritage. I have done a video about that before, but I thought the Historic Environment Viewer has been upgraded or has been improved in some ways, and I might talk about that and use some of the features that they are available now, which might have been available before, but I didn't use them in the last video. There are 2 other reasons why I wanted to make the video. One is that I met someone last week who thinks she has discovered a monument, and I said to her that she should report it to the National Monument Service, and she seemed not quite to know how to do that. So I'm hoping that these kinds of people will find this video and be able to follow my instructions. Of course, I don't really know how computer savvy my audience is. Some of you might be as computer savvy as I am. Not that I'm the master of computers. I have no programming skills or anything, but I'd say I'm quite computer literate. And the other reason is that the National Monument Service has this new campaign, which I came across on Instagram a couple of days ago, which is check before you dig. Because a lot of times people will dig on their property, which they think they can do because it's their property, but it's not really. They're just looking after it. And they might destroy archaeological sites in the process. Because as far as I know, if you're just building a barn on your farm, you don't need planning permission. But even if it is a site that needs planning permission, I have an example here in Lavistown in County Kilkenny. The red circle is the protected area around Lavistown Castle, or what's left of it. And the house that I had to Photoshop in there because it's not on the Historic Environment Viewer yet was built in the last 5 years, I would say. And somehow they got planning permission for that. But it happens, unfortunately, and these sites are destroyed forever, and all they would have needed was an archaeologist on site monitoring the spoil heap, and maybe a metal detectorist. Obviously, maybe not obviously, but you cannot go metal detecting in Ireland without there being an archaeological site and you being involved in that archaeological dig. It's not like in the UK where you can just go and find stuff, and it's not like that. In Ireland, there are very strict rules about that, so don't do that. If you think you found a site, don't get a metal detector or metal detectorist metal detecting the site. That is illegal, and chances are that you will be seen. So don't do that, not just because you might get in trouble about that, but also because archaeological sites need to be dug professionally. There needs to be proper records of the site. And if that is destroyed, like so many were in the 19th and 18th century because archaeology was in its infancy, there is no way of bringing that information back. And it will be lost forever. So these are my motivations or reasons why I decided to make this video. Why should you report a monument? First off, there is no financial reward. If there was, that would be great, but there isn't. So I see it as my civic duty to report them, because only if they are recorded can there be any legal protection on them. And it also it's the hunter-gatherer in me, I suppose, that I like to find them and report them. It's a bit like stamp collecting. Somebody compared recording crannogs to stamp collecting in a video I watched recently about crannogs in the Scottish Highlands. Because not all these sites will be excavated. Very few of these sites will be excavated, which is a pity, but you can't, there's thousands of archaeological sites in Ireland, and if there isn't an urgency like a motorway being built across them, there is no urgency to excavate them. If you happen to be watching and you are a millionaire and you want to fund an archaeological dig, there are probably ways to do that, and I'd be very happy to show you some sites that you can finance. So this is why you should record them. You cannot check for an archaeological site that isn't recorded, if you get me. So if that's why I try to record them as soon as possible and not delay too much. There are, of course, always reasons to delay. There are several ways of finding monuments. As I said, I was working with this grid, so I would load one of those tiles into JOSM, which is the editor I'm using for this, because mapping buildings is very efficient with JOSM. And also there are some tools that will help you measure things and to find coordinates and stuff, which you wouldn't have in the ID editor. But if you are a beginner, which I presume most people watching, I don't know, you would probably use the ID editor, if at all. So I load one of those tiles into the JOSM editor, and I've set it to use Esri world imagery, as you can see down here, and also I actually named the task that. I made it a private task so nobody would interfere with it. And this is, I think it is actually taken by Maxar, I'm not entirely sure, but the imagery was taken in the summer of 2022, as far as I know, which, if you remember, was a very hot summer. So you will see a lot of crop marks. This is how I discovered them. Of course, you could just go over, for whatever reason, go over Google Maps or something, the satellite view, and think that you see something there. Or if you have a drone and you fly a drone, you might discover something in the imagery later on there. Or you might just be walking somewhere and come across something that looks to you like it could be an archaeological site, which is not very common. Well, it is quite common to come across something that is an archaeological site, but it would be quite uncommon for it not to be recorded already on the Historic Environment Viewer. It depends a bit on the county. In County Kilkenny, it's fairly well recorded. There might not always be a description of the monument yet, but it will have a number, so it is recorded. In other counties, it might not be as thorough as in County Kilkenny. So if you come across something like a deserted medieval settlement, which you will often see in the vicinity of medieval churches, you won't see the settlement, but you will see what they call lumps and bumps on Time Team, and that will be remains of houses and streets. And a lot of them are recorded, not all of them though. So you might come across that. And usually people take their phone when they're walking. So if you're walking and you come across something that you think might be an archaeological site, it could be much smaller. It could just be a fulacht, of course. I would recommend that you get the Historic Environment Viewer on your phone, and I would recommend that before you go on your next walk and you tend to be interested in these kinds of things, that you save the link on your phone and then you can open it up on your phone, like here, and you have to have the location enabled for that app. And if you click on that little thing there on the left, it will show you where you are. In this example, I was in Kilkenny City because it's easy to cycle there. And it will show you all the monuments in the vicinity. And you can click on one of the red dots. The red dots are more or less, most cases, the archaeological sites. They're before 1700, not always, but usually. And the blue dots are after 1700, so they will usually be building ruins or village pumps or something like that, and you will usually still see what is left of it. So it's not as much as a mystery as the red dots, if you get me. And you can also turn the blue dots off, the layer for the blue dots, and only be shown the red dots. And once you click on it, there might be more than one result for each dot. I talked about that in my video about the review of the historic environment viewer, which I will link up in the corner. You have to click on the arrow and that will show you the full result. Depending on which county you're in or which area you're in, you might get a very thorough, very informative description of the site. And sometimes it will just say the Archaeological Survey of Ireland is in the process of blah, 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 blah. And that is very disappointing, but at least usually you'll have the type of the monument. It won't give you a date or anything else, or a size, or any other context, but they're working on that. It's all a work in progress. And just as a mapper's work is never done, an archaeologist's work is also never done, I suppose. So this is how you can use it on your phone. When you're at home, on your computer, you can use the historic environment viewer in your browser. I will also put a link to that in the description because it's not that easy to find, in my opinion. They still haven't come up with the short link. So this is what that looks like. Let's say you found something on Google Maps. This is one site I discovered there. During the week, I didn't obviously find it on Google Maps because I don't use Google Maps, but I'm just trying to imagine that I'm someone else who does use Google Maps. So this dark circle here looks very suspicious. It looks more suspicious on the imagery I used, but you can see it on this imagery as well. So you have this dark circle and then you can kind of see an oval circle here around it. It's a bit like a fried egg. So let's imagine you found it on Google Maps and you might only have seen this dark spot here. It's not a very typical site, but it's one that is also available on Google Maps. I had to find a site that is visible on Google Maps and also on the imagery I used. And this is, of course, the satellite imagery of Google Maps. Usually when you open it, it will look like this, and obviously you can't see anything. But if you go to the satellite view, you will see this. Or some people also use Google Earth, which again, I cannot use for OpenStreetMap because it's copyrighted. But I know some people go on Google Earth and find stuff. So I'll just use the same coordinates there to show you what it looks like there. It could look exactly the same, I don't know. Yeah, it's exactly the same imagery, so never mind that. If you found it here, how do I turn this off? See, that's I don't really... Yeah, so let's say you have been looking around because you happen to live there and you've moved this around and you come across this dot here and you want to see if it is already on the historic environment viewer. So you right click here in the middle of this dark patch and copy the coordinates that's the bottom one there. So that's copied to the clipboard, or if you were using Google Maps, you do the same, right click, but there the menu is different, but it copies the coordinates and they're all in GPS. So then you go to your historic environment viewer and you paste that in the search field. And you see it has a lot of digits after the decimal point, which can be quite important. So it will jump to the area, and you can already see that there are quite a few red dots there already. So there are quite a few archaeological sites in the vicinity, which sometimes happens. So there are a lot of enclosures, but the dot we were looking for is this dark gray one here. And it doesn't have a red dot on it or in the vicinity. The precision isn't always there, so it might be here or here, so you might have to look around. This is the Ordnance Survey background, so you won't see anything there, so you have to choose a satellite imagery. Before you Now this already looks like it might be worth reporting because it's not on the Historic Environment Viewer, but you might also want to check it against other satellite imagery or aerial imagery. So this is the Google one, which is actually, I think, also Maxar. I'm not quite sure. But satellite imagery is taken every 2 years or so, I don't exactly know, because of course there are a lot of buildings being built and new roads being built, and Google and Bing and all these kinds of companies and OpenStreetMap have to use recent imagery to capture what's there on the ground. And it's always a little bit delayed because it takes time to process the imagery as well. And on OpenStreetMap, we usually get the hand-me-downs, and they could be 5 years old, and that's why it's a bit difficult to be up to date with the mapping, even if you're really trying. So we're going back to the Historic Environment Viewer, and if you look at the menu at the top right, you have this one here. This is the layers list, which shows you the sites and monuments records, the red dots. You can turn those off, which you don't want to do. The National Inventory of Architectural Heritage, the blue dots, which you can turn off, but you won't need them. And then you also get the SMR zone, which is the protection zone around the monuments, which is where there shouldn't be anything built. And then you also have the townland boundaries here, the green lines, which are important for the report. They're the green lines, you can turn them on and off, and you have the name here in green letters and then also again in grey letters. And the grey letters will remain there because they're not part of the layer. Just the green stuff will vanish. And you have the counties as well, what we already know were in County Kilkenny. If you were just randomly going over Google Maps and you found something and you're not even sure which county you're in, you can tell by if there are records in the vicinity, you can tell by the Sites and Monuments Records numbers. So KK is for Kilkenny, LS would be for Laois, and so on. TN is for Tipperary North Riding, TS for Tipperary South Riding. It's the same as in the car registration numbers. So that should be easy enough to understand. And you also get contours here, which sometimes they're more or less important, so you can turn those off and on as well. Well, let's go back here. So that's the layer list, and then we also have the base map gallery list, and most of them are important here. If you want to check satellite imagery first, I would recommend doing that first. So you go to the latest is MapGenie, and you can see that there is no crop in the field compared to here, where you have something growing, early stages of growing, I would say, early in the season. And here it's all ploughed, but you can still see I want to say it's a depression. It could be a hill as well, I can't tell from here, obviously. But you can see this dark spot here, and you can also kind of see the outer oval bit. And so you can see it in that one, which is good. It's always good to have it in more than one imagery. You don't always get that, but it's good to check. And then you also can check the next one, and the further back they go, the worse they get. But Esri, well, this is what we call Esri Clarity. On OpenStreetMap here, they call it Digital Globe, and they have dates on them, which is also useful to have. So you have that depression, and you have the part of the oval bit, and you can actually see some of the other monuments there in the field as not really, well, maybe they're crop marks, I don't know. And then you go back further and the imagery gets worse and worse. Well, this is actually for some, so you can see this monument fairly well here on this one, and this is a square monument, squarish, and the other ones are not as easy to see. But it depends a lot on what's growing in the field and how dry the field is. So as I said, the imagery I used is 2022, and it was a very dry summer, so we'll see crop marks much easier. And then going back further, you continue to see this depression here. And, you know, it's in all the imageries, which is strange why it's not been recorded previously. And then, well, this one you don't see a lot, but you still see this one here. So that's all the aerial imagery. And then you also want to check, because it is a depression, I think, it could just have been a quarry. It's not very likely that somebody made a circular quarry, but it could also have been a pond, because it is a depression, I think. So you want to check against the old Ordnance Survey maps, and you have to check a box in the report form later on that you have checked them, so you might as well check them. So the first one is the first edition, that's the 1840s, I think. So there is nothing there. It does have this one though, which we could see in all the aerial imagery, so it makes a lot of sense. It's very pronounced, but there's nothing here. This one, if you think it's this one, that's just the watermark. And then the next one is basically the same, it's just in color. And you can see the watermark has moved. That's also why it makes sense to check against other imagery. So there's nothing to see there. And then chronologically, you should go to the 25-inch map next. And it's not in that one either. And then you can go to the last edition, black and white, 6-inch, which is this one, and it's also not in that one. And this is, I think, identical with the British War Office map that we are allowed to use on OpenStreetMap. So this is how you check it, and I'm fairly convinced now that this is a site. So I would report this. Actually 2 sides. So you have this, the smaller one, the circular one, and the oval one. So the whole fried egg is 2 sides. So then you need the report form. And I will also put a link to that in the video description, because it's also not that easy to find. It's down here. Report the find of an archaeological monument, and you can do it in a Word document or in a PDF document. I downloaded the Word document, as you can see. I clicked on that. I seem to have clicked on all of them. I don't know why. And this document is from 2021. And I think what I can read between the lines of the report form is that you're supposed to print it out, fill it in by hand, and then send it by post. I don't know who does this anymore. I downloaded it and I adjusted the form a little bit. I will get to that. And then I save it. I usually convert it into PDF and then send it off. And so we'll do that. We'll download this by just clicking on this, or just clicking left click. That will download it and it will be in your downloads folder. Or you could right click and save link as, and then find a folder for your correspondence or something where you can find it easier. I don't know how you have your files organized on your computer, so I can't tell you what to do. I have a folder, reports to the National Monument Service, because I have reported about 50 or so. So for me, it makes sense to have a whole folder for these, and each monument has its own subfolder. Usually, I'm not completely organized, but I'm trying to have a subfolder for each one, because you will also have to send screenshots of the maps, and if you have that all in one folder, it's just easier to find. So I'll click on download here and open this. I don't have Microsoft Word. I have OpenOffice, but it works fairly similar. So I open this by just clicking on this download, or I could have gone into my downloads folder and clicked on it there. So this is the form. It has 3 pages. My adjusted one only has 2 pages. But this is what the form looks like when you download it. And I'll read this, will I? The following report form has been designed to assist persons who may wish to supply information on newly discovered monuments. The current operational policy of the National Monument Service is primarily to record monuments dating from the pre-AD 1700 period. Please check the records of the Archaeological Survey of Ireland on the National Monument Service website, and then they give the link, before sending in a report to ensure that the monument has not already been recorded. This monument report form will form part of the Signs and Monuments records. Funnily, that's in a different font. There must have been an addition at some point. So, as I said previously, check against this, which we have done, but this is what they're trying to say there. The first thing you have to put in is county. As I said, you will find that by zooming out a lot and seeing what it says there, or if you've already looked in the vicinity of where you live, you will know which county you live in. So it has the county boundaries there. The black lines are the county boundaries. So I'll zoom in again. And so this is County Kilkenny. And then they want the townlands sometimes. It stretches over 2 townlands. That's why they have the plural S there in brackets. This is the townland of Rathclough. So we type that in. And then the classification. Is it a ringfort, a standing stone, a cairn, or a mound? We don't know this because most of us are not archaeologists and haven't dug the site. So for now, what they will very likely classify it as is enclosure, because that's a very broad umbrella term. As you can see, these are all enclosures. So this is what we will put down. If you follow my channel, you'll know that I reported quite a few crannogs last year and this year. Obviously, you know when you see a crannog that is a crannog. If it's in a lake, it can't be an enclosure, it will be a crannog. But an enclosure can be just an enclosure to keep animals in that space. It can be a ringfort. If you only see this depression here, you can't tell if that is a ringfort with just one ditch, or it could also be an ecclesiastical enclosure, which could be like an early monastic site or a graveyard. The early Christian graveyards were circular, so this could be what this is. But since it has another enclosure around, I'm not quite sure. It could also be a henge. It could also be a barrow. It's a bit too large for a barrow though. But, circular things can be a lot of things, because circles are very simple to make. All you need is 2 sticks and a piece of string. And it's a very popular shape in prehistory and even later. So enclosure is what we're going with. The next information they want is the Irish transverse Mercator coordinates and the Irish grid coordinates. Here is where I adapted my farm and I replaced it with GPS, because everyone uses GPS. If you use Google, you will get GPS. If you use OpenStreetMap, you will use GPS. Even the Historic Environment Viewer uses GPS, so I don't know why they don't give that option here. And I have sent them an email a week ago and asked them that, but I haven't gotten a reply. So what I've done is I have deleted this here. If you print this out, you will have to get Tipex. And I just replaced this with GPS and then deleted the E and N, which is for east and north. And also adjusted this. I think this is a table. And I've just merged the cells there. I don't really want to explain how to do that because this is not a video on how to use Word or OpenOffice Writer. But you can merge this, because what the person who reads the report will do is just copy and paste these into the Historic Environment Viewer and check if they can see something. And to make it easy for them, why not provide GPS, because that is what they are going to use. It is actually a bit more awkward to leave it in 2 fields, to have the longitude and the latitude. It would be much easier to just have 1 field. Maybe I'm just going to do that, because it's just more work for you to split it, and then it's more work for them in the department to bring it into one field again. So anyway, so what we might have to do though is work the number format, because as you could see here, there are a lot of digits after the decimal point. And the more digits you have after the decimal point, the more precise this is, which might not be as important for a large site, but if you only have a fulacht via, which might be, I don't know, 2 by 1 meters, you want to know precisely where you're looking. So I will show you that. If I take out all these and only have 2 digits after the decimal point and search again, it will not be in the same location. It will be here, which is not where the monument is. And this is just by giving unprecise GPS coordinates. I would suggest to have 5 digits after the decimal point. See, if you copy this here, it shows you 5. It might actually give you more. But they want to have this pop up nice in this size. So if they had 12 digits after the decimal point, it would stretch all the way out and it wouldn't look nice. So you just copy this, paste that in again. So you see it has, I don't know how many those are, but if I just delete them to 5, that's 6, that's 5. If I search now, it's still within that circle. It's not in the center of the circle, but it's still precise enough. And then I can copy that and paste that in here. And that should be good enough. And then source of coordinates, please fill 1. GPS. I don't know how you fill this. I usually just don't do anything about this. Date of inspection of monument. Usually I don't go and inspect the monuments. I just find them on the satellite view, so it's not really an inspection. But they will figure that out by reading the report. So I just put in the month and the year, I think. Yeah, so it's December 7th today that I'm recording this, so I'm just, 2023. I could put in the 7, but usually I don't. Name of person compiling the report, so that's where you put in your name. I'm not sure I have really published my name completely, so I'm not going to do that. And the address, phone number, and email address, I'm certainly not going to put that on the screen. I will fill that in later on. Then there is the question, are you content to be identified by name on the historic environment viewer as the person who reported the monument? That's your decision. If you say yes here, in the description of the monument, it will say first reported by and then your name. If you're okay with that, that's the only fame you're gonna get out of this, really. So if you're happy with this, you tick this box. You can't really tick it, just underline. So just highlight the yes and then go to underline, because you're not going to print this out and circle. If you want to print it out, you could just circle this. Setting of monument. Situation and land use in and around monuments. So that is usually where you say in a field. And this is only for this one here, the circular one. For the next one, well, I suppose I could put them in one report because they might be connected. It's very likely that they are. In a field, in the vicinity of other recorded monuments, enclosures. This obviously depends on whatever your monument looks like. There might not be other monuments in the vicinity, but if there are, I think that is of significance. Condition of monument, I usually leave that blank, because if it's in a field, it's not really obscured. Local information, local name, field name, past history. This is where it's important to have field names. We don't have, obviously you won't get field names on Google Maps. but I don't think I have a field name on it here. So I've already mapped them as archaeological sites, these two, but no type. But there is no, unfortunately, there is no field name for this field. There are a lot south of it, but none here, unfortunately. You might sometimes get that. And you can check them here, and you can also check them on heritagemaps.ie. heritagemaps.ie. I don't use this very often, so I might take me a little longer than necessary. I don't know if this works with GPS. No, so you have to have the townland for that. That's inconvenient. Rathcloch. And there are 3, and I presume it's this one. Yes. Layers. So the menu that you have on the historic environment viewer that you have at the top right, on heritage maps it's at the bottom. But you have similar layers. So there's our monument. So this is the same imagery as we have here, I think, isn't it? Yeah. So it's the 2006 to 2012 imagery. And then there is a layer somewhere here for the field names of County Kilkenny, which of course only works if you're living in Kilkenny. I can't tell you where all the field names are hidden for other counties. Field names. Kilkenny Field Names Townlands Project. So you tick that box and that should show you the field names that the County Council collected. And there aren't any here. So we don't have a field name for this field. So we can't put anything in local information. References, we don't have that. Other notes, for example, if the monument has been found as the result of a licensed archaeological investigation, then the license number should be given, blah 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 blah. Most people watching this video will not be licensed archaeologists, so I'll just skip that. And then they want a description of the monument. So for this one, you just have to describe it as best you can. So I will say circular depression, and I put question mark behind, of, and then you want to measure it. And this is where the tools come in that you can use on the historic environment viewer. If we close the base map gallery, we don't really have to close it. At the almost the last one, there you see a little ruler there. And you open that, and there is one to measure an area, which we don't want to do. But we want to measure a distance, in this case the diameter. So you click on that and you set one point at one end of the circle. You know what I mean. And then another one where you think the circle roughly ends. And that gives you the measurement in kilometers, which is not great. I would have wanted that in meters. Or you can change that here to meters. 56.7 meters, which is quite substantial. So 56.7 meters diameter, surrounded by oval crop mark, two words, crop mark of, and then you want to clear this to measure the next one, which is very difficult to see here. but I think it's roughly from there to there. What's it doing? From there to clear. It doesn't want to be measured. Okay, so 580 meters northwest to southeast, and oh, this is annoying. It worked the last time I tried. That's roughly the dimensions. 395 meters northwest to southeast. Sorry, the first one should have been northeast. Southwest to northeast and northwest to southeast. And then I usually put visible on, and then I list all the imagery that it is visible on. Clear. So you have to go back to the base map gallery, Map Genie, and then the dates 2013 to 2018, digital globe. Don't have to give a date for that because it only has the one date. Map Genie 2006 to 2012, etc. Usually it's not visible on all of them. Not on any old OS map, which is Ordnance Survey, which is these four which we checked before. If it is visible on any of them, then it is very likely to already have a red dot, but not always. And then of course you don't write that. You have to adapt this to your case, obviously. Is there anything else? You could check Dukas, the schools collection. I'm not going to do that, but for some it is quite useful to check. If you've watched the video about the Crannoch in Mayo that I found, there was a reference to it, well, kind of folkloristic, mysterious reference to it in the schools collection. Sometimes it's also useful to think about the townland name. So this one is Rathclough. So there has to be a Rath somewhere that it got its name from, but it is probably this one here, which is on the Ordnance Survey map. But sometimes where there isn't a Rath already mapped or recorded in the townland and it has the name Rath something, it might be the one that you just found, the enclosure that you just found. Who knows? But sometimes there's a hint in the townland name. Yeah. In this case, I presume it refers to this one here, so I'm not going to say anything about that. There might be local folklore that isn't in the school's collection, so if you know anything about that, it's worth putting that in as well. If you have drone footage, tell them which year you took it in, what conditions, if it was a hot summer, I presume that would be useful to know for them to know. Yeah. And that's all I usually put in the summary. Report accompanied by a sketch plan and or section elevation drawings. No. Report accompanied by a photograph. Usually no, because I don't go to these sites. Report accompanied by a copy of OS map. In this case, no, because it's not on the OS map. And or aerial photo. And we'll leave it at yes there. And what we're going to do is take a couple of screenshots here. And on Windows, and I can only speak for Windows because that's all I use, you press the Windows key, which is next to the Control key, the Shift key, and S at the same time. and that will use the screenshot program, like so. And then you take a screenshot of the area. And sometimes it's useful to have some buildings in the background for scale, because there is no scale on this. So maybe, yeah, there aren't any really in the vicinity. So maybe like this. So you just drag the square over your side, and it will give you a notification here, or you will find it in your Pictures folder, Pictures, Screenshots. That is automatically created, that folder, so you'll find it there if for some reason this one doesn't pop up. And then they want to know exactly where it is, because from this they might not be able to tell. It has this ballpoint pen activated here at the top, and you might, if you don't like yellow, you can choose a different color. I usually leave it at yellow, and you can change the thickness as well. And what I usually do is either I circle it or I put arrows on it. And you could use different color circles if you have more than one monument in your report, which doesn't happen an awful lot of times. But let's say I use the circular one. You could also make dots around it here. Use the yellow arrows for the circular one. Make sure they don't miss it. And then maybe for the oval one, I'll use a different color. In this imagery, it's not really very visible, or it's not great. And then you want to save it. At the top right there is a save as, and as I said, ideally make a folder for this. I haven't done this yet. I will do it now. Click on save and then go to your folder where you have your reports to National Monument Service. Create a new folder, and usually I put a date on it so I have a better chance of finding it later on. Year, month, day, townland name, and site type. Enclosures. That's how I do it. So that's the folder created, and then you go into that folder and you name it. Use the date again. Don't have to do it like that, but I think that's an efficient way of doing it. Rathclough enclosures, and then the name of the imagery, which is Map Genie 2013 to 2018. So they know what to compare it to. So that's the first one. And then maybe one where it's easier to see, like this one. It's quite good. And you can try to get the same area in the screenshot, but it's not going to be exactly the same. And then you do the same again with the arrows. You can also use the highlighter here and just draw around it like that. That's sometimes what I do as well. Oh, different color. Maybe it's not oval, but on the imagery I used it is more oval. Hopefully they know what you mean by this, and save that as well in the same folder. So the same date. Rathclough enclosures, and the imagery is digital globe. If you're using Google Maps, you can do the same. And I won't use that. I will use the one that I have on OpenStreetMap, which is Esri World. So I go into the editing mode. Usually I would have it in JAWSM, but you can use the ID editor as well. And I think that is already Esri World. Yes, so you can change that. I'll show that again. The side panel here, the background settings, click on that. And I don't know what it is set to. Usually I'll show you on Bing, it's not visible at all. I'll have to turn all the map data off. Well, it is a bit. So you see, I think that's the same as this, is it? No, slightly different color. Same as Google, no. So they're all slightly different, as you can see. There's slightly different coloring. So this is Bing, I won't use that. This is the one I saw it on, which is Esri World. It's not actually that much better. The only thing is that maybe you can see it extend here. I'm not entirely convinced. Esri World Clarity is the same as Digital Globe. Mapbox Satellite is the same as Bing. Not always, but it is here. And this doesn't seem to be available for Ireland. So sometimes I will use, well, usually I will use the screenshot where I discovered it on as well, and then add the name Esri World. I won't do it in this case. I do usually map them as historic equals, here on the left, historic equals archaeological site, but I won't give a site type because I don't know what it is. And then I leave a note saying might be a site, or might be a crannog, or might be an enclosure, not reported yet. I should also, if you watch this and you're trying to copy me now, you will use that as well, and then we might all get in trouble trying to differentiate who found what. Discovered by B Unicycling. And then, of course, once I have reported this, I will change the note to discovered and reported by B Unicycling and with the date. But I haven't sent the report yet, so I won't do that. Save that, added to node. So we have the two aerial views for this now, and we leave this as providing aerial photo, yes. Checked against National Monument Service website, yes, which is what we did at the very beginning, and then you have to sign this and put a date on it. I, at some point, years and years ago, signed a white sheet of paper and scanned that, and I have that saved on my computer, so I can just insert image somewhere. Should be here somewhere. Picture, and then from file. That's the easiest way to do it digitally if you don't want to print this whole thing out. And then there's a privacy statement, which I don't know how up to date that is, because this link down here is not working because they changed their whole website structure. And I've told them that today, but I don't know. It might take a while for them to work on that. And then, of course, when you fill this all in, or you can do it in the beginning somewhere, you have to save that document in the folder that you have created. And again, I usually use the date. Rathclough enclosures. And I have learned how to spell enclosures. Isn't that great? And I'll save it as an ODT document. If you're using Word, you'll save it as a Word document and you can send that on. But I usually convert it into PDF. There's a button up here in OpenOffice to export it into PDF. And I sent the PDF instead. That's up to you what you want to do. If you wanted to provide them with the Irish transverse Mercator coordinates, you would have to go to, I have a lot of tabs open now, Irish Grid Finder. I will put a link to that also in the description. And that can convert GPS into the ITM or the UTM, I think, and also into what 3 words. But you need the ITM, which is down here. So we go back, copy that. And copy that into here, and it will automatically split it and put it into the fields where it belongs. I hope you saw that. There's a lot of ads on this page, sorry about that. And click on Go, and it will show you the grid reference, which you don't need, the easting and northing, and the latitude and longitude, which is what you already had, so you don't need that. The only thing you need are these here, X ITM and Y ITM, I hope. And the thing is that because they made this to be printed, it's not very friendly to be used on the, I don't want to split, I want to merge the cells. It's a bit awkward. So maybe if you think you're going to find more than one, which you will never know beforehand, but you might want to just adjust the form and save it as the default form, so you don't have to go to all these steps of adapting the form every time you report a monument. But this way, it is much easier for them to use, and it's also easier for you to use once you have adjusted it. And don't forget that you have to put in your name, address, phone number, and email address. I usually don't give them my phone number, address, and email address, and the name, and then the signature and the date, which I won't do now. And save, and then send it on to the email address that is given somewhere on the website. I will also put that in the video description. Forms, because it's not in the form, because that would be too easy. All they give is the postal address, and who knows if that's still working. So that's the first report, which I didn't finish. The other site I want to show you is, which one will I use? Yeah, this one. I actually cycled out to this one today because I thought I could take an actual in-person picture, but it wasn't possible because the hedges were too tall. So this is one that's not too far from Kilkenny city, and it is very likely a ringfort. I will show you that in JOSM, because I haven't shown you how to do all these things in JOSM yet. So you see I have it mapped as historic archaeological site, and the note might be a ringfort not yet reported. I can open this in JOSM, and this only opens whatever was on screen here. And then I have to choose the imagery. I used Essie World, as I said. And I'll turn the data off so you see what I saw. So the area that I was looking at was a little bit larger than this. And I think what first caught my attention, I can't tell you exactly now, but is that kink in the hedge. Usually hedges are straight. The only reason where a hedge wouldn't be straight is if it goes around a corner along a road, or if it is avoiding a monument. And I hope you can see this now. But there is an inner circle here, which this hedge follows. And then there's also an outer ring here. And it's not the clearest imagery, I have to admit now, but I've looked on aerial imagery for thousands of hours now, so my eyes have learned how to see things, so to speak. And I can just hope that you can see it. But I sent a screenshot of this to a friend and said, do you see what I see? And he said, yeah, I can see it. So that's what I do. If you have someone you know that you can trust who won't just go and report it for themselves, you can send it on and ask them if they also see what you see. Because sometimes if you're not used to doing this kind of work, you might see things where there aren't any, because it could be tractor marks. If you're not used to recognizing stuff, you might identify a tractor mark as an archaeological site, and then you're kind of wasting the department's time and you'll be disappointed as well. I also want to show you another example which I came across to show you what is not a site. Here. So here we have field names, and I'll go in with the ID editor. I have to be careful now not to accidentally open it in JOSM. So you see all these circles here. That is a little bit suspicious in itself, that there are so many. And here you do get a scale. I would have to zoom in a lot to match it up here. So it's about 25 meters in diameter, which would be, let's say, a good size for a monument. I don't know what would make this kind of markings in a field. I haven't ever come across them in that number before. I thought maybe cattle feeders, but it's way too large for a cattle feeder. Maybe some sort of an animal enclosure that gets moved around. But I don't really know what it is. I've sent an email to the farmer, because he happens to be a neighbour of mine, to see what he can come up with. But it won't make it into this video, sorry. So I'm fairly sure that this is not... that these are not archaeological monuments. They're also overlapping. You can see here how they're overlapping, and that wouldn't happen an awful lot. It's not like archaeological sites don't overlap. They do. But not the same type. You know, if they were hut sites, for example, they wouldn't overlap as much, I think. I tried to find out the size of cattle ring feeders, and they were given in millimeters, which is a bit strange. So these were 25 meters, but what gave in millimeters translates into 2.5 meters. So I'm a bit confused about that. But I'm fairly sure, long story short, that these are not archaeological sites, so we don't have to report them. But this one, because it has concentric circles, there might actually be more here, I'm not entirely sure. I would report this. So if I wanted to report this now, we have to do our due diligence and check in the historic environment viewer. If you're using JOSM, I know that not a lot of people will use JOSM who are watching this video, presumably, or people who find this because they're not experienced advanced mappers like I am, and they wouldn't be using JOSM. But there are a couple of tools in JOSM that are very useful, and I want to include them in the video. So first of all, if you want to get the GPS coordinates out of this, if you look at the bottom left, you'll see that they are shown, the longitude and latitude, but you wouldn't want to type them up there, because every time you move your mouse slightly, which you will when you're filling in the form, it will change. But there is a way of doing that, so you just set a node here. You would have to turn the data layer on again though. Set a node there, highlighted, and then you can go to View in the menu and Advanced Info, and it opens this window and it gives you the coordinates here. And you can just copy them, and you see they have 7 digits after the decimal point. And we go back to the historic environment viewer, because we have to check and close this window. We have to check whether it's already a recorded monument. And it is not, because there is no red dot. Sometimes, to be fair, the red dots don't load, and so just to make sure that they are loaded, just zoom out a little bit and you will see that there are others around. So they are loaded, but it's not recorded. So we have checked Map Genie. It's not visible in Map Genie. It is not really visible on Digital Globe. It's not visible on any of those. I can tell you that already because I've already checked. But it's not. And then we have to check the the OS maps, and you see that the hedge already kinks out there as well, even though the house is not there. Not that the kink in the hedge has anything to do with the house, but it already does that there, which is suspicious, as I said. Same in color. Same here. It looks a bit rounder there. I don't know what that is. And same on the 25-inch map. So it's not on any of the Ordnance Survey maps. We've done our due diligence. It's not recorded. And then we can start writing the report. I will use the same form that I used for the Rathclough one. I'll just have to save it under a different name. So file, save as, and I'll have to create a new folder. 2023 12/7. The townland is Dicksborough. Dicksborough, and I will just go out on a limb and say it's a ringfort because it has 2 ditches. And change the file name to Dicksborough ringfort. There is already a ringfort reported in Dicksborough, but this is the first and the only one I will report today, so it's okay to call it that. And save. And then we can delete all the data that we don't need anymore and replace it with the new information. So the county is the same as County Kilkenny, townland is Dicksborough, and I can't spell that, Dicksborough, and classification, I could write presumably ringfort. The GPS we can take from here. And the date is the same, area content, blah, 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 that's all the same. Setting of the monument, in the corner of a field, I don't know what else to say. I think it was slightly sloping. Well, the road was sloping. Sometimes that's important. Condition of monument, weather obscured by trees. It kind of is. In this case, usually I only apply the information from the satellite view, but since I went there today and I couldn't take a photograph because the hedges are so tall, I might write that down because that might be important for the person who does the actual field work and checks these out. Behind tall hedges not visible from road. There might be another access though, which you might find out when she goes there. I don't have a field name, unfortunately. And then go to the description. Concentric circles in the corner of the field, northwestern hedge forms northwestern boundary of inner circle. Concentric crop mark circles, maybe. Only visible on Esri World Imagery. Let's check Google just in case, but it might just be the same imagery. Sometimes it's also worth zooming in because they might have different imagery when you zoom in. Oh, this is so annoying. That the new imagery just stopped there. It just goes straight through the field. And that's possibly because this is Kilkenny City. So the newer imagery is probably in the east because it's Kilkenny City and Google is more interested in cities than in the countryside. And that's why the boundary is there. Up here is the other already reported monument, by the way, and you can see that there's a tree circle, so to speak, surrounding the monument. That's a bit more of a giveaway. So it's not on Google. Where's my form? Here. Nothing on the old OS maps. Okay, I usually don't do this because I usually don't visit the sites, but if it helps them with their planning of the site visit, you might as well provide them with that information. And then we have to convert that. We don't have to. The last few reports I didn't even convert it into ITM. It depends a bit, I guess, who's at the other end. Irish Grid Reference Finder. It's not visible in this really either. ITM here. And then again, you know, I have to fill in my name, address and all that and save. And the screen, oh, I forgot the size. Oops. So in JOSM, since I only have this imagery on Esri World, which I don't have available anywhere else, it's very difficult to not measure it in JOSM. So that's what I'm going to do. I use the drawing tool, the line tool, and I just go across here. And at the bottom left, it tells me that this is 64.54 meters. And, oops, and I don't want that line in the map. So I'll add that to the description. Of circa 65 meter diameter. Okay, save that. Most of you will not have that option, but there's kind of a way around it. If we imagine this hedge being the inner circle, and we just have to imagine the circle there, and then the outer circle is slightly bigger, so we just have to estimate where the circle goes and then measure that, I suppose. Right now it's still roughly 60 meters, which is large enough. You know, that's the only way I can tell you. If it's not here visible anywhere, it's very difficult to measure it. Maybe there's something here, but you kind of really have to have a lot of imagination to see a line here. And size does matter in this case, because the larger the ringfort, the more important it was, kind of. And also because it has 2 digits, it could be important. I mean, it's not a royal site or anything, I don't think. yeah, it's actually not too far away from Drakelands Castle, or what remains of that. I didn't go and check that out. And this is really old imagery. Where are we here? Oh yeah, because there's a nursing home here, which isn't even on this imagery. Anyway, so that's that report done, and then you have to send it to, as I said, to the email address that I will also provide in the description. And then you just have to hope that it will be approved. One of the problems, and I should have probably said that earlier, is that the historic environment viewer is still in the interim version. So even if they say, okay, yes, you're right, this is a site, but we won't put it on the historic environment viewer at the moment because it's still in its interim version, and it won't be until next year that you will find it, which I find a bit frustrating, because what's the point of check before you dig if not all the monuments are on the map? You know, it's kind of difficult to check monuments. Yeah, but that's not really my problem. It just gives me sleepless nights, but it can't be helped from my point. So maybe when you watch this in a couple of months' time, because not before next year. Next year has 12 months, so it could be a long while still until all these monuments are on the HEV. So maybe if you watch this in 6 months' time, it will not be in its interim version, and maybe it will have changed its link as well. So I'm only providing the links that are valid at the moment. This might all change. So please try to do your own research. Try to find the working links. I cannot update all these links all the time. I'm not getting any money for this, and I don't have time to follow up on all of this. So you might have to search online for yourself to find the correct links for the historic environment viewer and for the form, because maybe they will actually update the form in the future. So if you find that the links in my video description don't work, sorry about that, but that just means that the Department for Heritage has made some progress, which is a good thing. This turned out to be a very long video, but I kind of expected that. I hope that you saw what you were kind of expecting, or that you learned something from it and that it was useful for you. And it is kind of a bit of an annoying, off-putting process to report a monument, but please do anyway. And maybe you can, if you're overwhelmed with all the technicalities, maybe you have a younger friend or a relative that can help you, and it might trigger their interest in archaeology and heritage. You never know. And good luck with all of that. And if you want to comment below if you have found something and you've sent the report, don't comment before you've sent the report. Someone else might steal your discovery. You never know. Please comment below and let me know if you found something and all that, all the scale around it. That would be most interesting, I think. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks for being so patient, and see you again soon. Slán go fóill.